The world of international relations is no stranger to evolution and reformation. Throughout the years, concepts that were once established by traditional theories such as realism have been questioned and reformulated in new theories like postmodernism. The notion of power is one of several concepts that have undergone this revision and constant redefinition within the studies of IR. In the discourse of the concept of power, many divides can be noted among the various perspectives, many contradictory and many more even opposites. But perhaps, like many other attributes of politics and IR, the focus should shift from diverging and into converging. As Jennifer Sterling Folker and Rosemary Schinkel cite Walker, once historical contingency and diversity enter the analysis, opportunities of critique and creativity in discussions of political possibility increase.
One crucial matter for both realists and postmodernists is the relationship between power and knowledge. On the one hand, realists conceive certainty is the way in which power is achieved. Certainty does not leave space for questions or challenges, and the term itself excludes the opportunity for another option to rise. A great example of the monopolization of knowledge that creates an absolute power is religion. When individuals are part of a religion, they blindly follow its precepts because they represent the truth. Facts that are impossible to prove, but also forbidden to question. But religions are not the only ones that follow these premises. Many other daily activities involve the monopolization of knowledge. Scientists, journalists, politics, teachers, all of them are constantly constructing what is thought to be reality by taking advantage of the power that information and knowledge has given to them. On the contrary, postmodernists find power in ambiguity. Thus it leaves an open field for interpretations, challenges, and struggle. When a theory or knowledge is ambiguous, unclear, or it does not respond to a certain situation, its participants and actors need to create a variable of knowledge that applies to their reality. By doing this, the authors of new ideas acquire power, representing a challenge for the current status quo. Marginal sites here play a quintessential role since they are the only ones that are not considered in the current social, political, economic, and cultural arrangements. By not feeling identified with the ideas, minorities generate new and more diverse ones. For postmodernism, this opens a path towards change.
The previously mentioned spaces left between knowledge is what postmodernism considers appropriate to be filled with new opportunities guided by freedom. Realists, with their focus on the state, find power necessary to restrict individuals' intentions for self-making in a register of freedom. They argue that a state-centric system maintains order within society, and that it is the nation, not the state, the possible oppressor to some groups. On the other hand, it is postmodernists that understand power as an incentive to express freedom. Ashley and Walker describe freedom in Sterling Folker and Schinkel's article as that which exists prior to the imposition of limitations, necessity, and need. If we understand that it exists prior, then it is possible to define that impositions made by centric groups and the gap between knowledge they generate create spaces for freedom to act through actions or thoughts. Along with this, freedom expresses itself through ethics. When a group in a marginalized site tries to resist the limitations or restrictions that society imposes over it, then an inviting discipline of self-making ethics takes place and enables the individuals that resist sovereignty to connect through space, making reference to deterritorialized ethics. While realists affirm that human beings are social creatures and they need to find their identity through others, becoming united by the less desirable external factor, and therefore putting this need over freedom, postmodernists draw attention to the fact that the concept of others and the role they take in the society makes it crucial to question, test, and expose the power that lies behind practices that bound sovereign territorial spaces to certain characteristics and identity, leaving some as outsiders, as others. Differences in many aspects of power between the traditional and the postmodern theories are quite evident, but in general both of them describe it as both pervasive as well as a cause and an effect, structurally and individually. Still, the analytical focus of power between the two theories part in the sense that to the first, power is rather studied in the sense of action, the capacity of one to impose over the other. To the second one, in contrast, power is not only seen to have a causal effect, but also a constitutive one, for it can shape and reconfigure behavior, identity, and actions. Taking this into account, postmodernists see power in more than one dimension. In Barnett and Duval's Power in International Politics, many aspects of power are mentioned: institutional, behavioral, constitutive, productive, etc. All practices of guiding and steering collective outcomes in global social life, with the possible and partial exception of instances of compulsory power affected through relations of wrong coercive force and violence, derive from discourses that are productive of the social identities of the actors that engaged in them they express. Hence, according to these authors, and agreeing with Sterling Fokker and Schinko, whereas to realists power is thought of in more material terms and with almost immediate effects, to postmodernists power shapes behavior constantly, and therefore constitute practices that eventually become assimilated as reality. In this regard, with the multifaceted power, postmodernism emphasizes structure relative to purposeful agency, while still recognizing that the meaningful practices and hence human agency are essential in producing, reproducing, and possibly transforming these structures. Institutions, bureaucratic apparatus, ideologies, history, all of this can carry power in origins and in purpose, which in the end impacts in the conception and possibility of change itself.
Change has always generated controversy within the IR theories. Both realist and postmodernist approach the possibility of change within the international system from really different perspectives. On one hand, postmodernists see change as a factor of transformation and proliferation of change. Postmodernist thinkers critique the idea that structures are pre-constructed and immutable. Also, they recognize that even though change is always possible, it's hardly easy to be achieved. Contrary to postmodernism, realists and works of Walls believe in the transhistorical universal structure end of the theoretical spectrum, meaning that for realists, change is so meaningless that putting too much attention to it is not worth it. The structure is imposed, and actors will always act on behalf of it, and with this, they will keep on reproducing it.
Throughout Sterling Folker's and Schinko's texts, the distinctions of power between realism and postmodernism seems clear, but theories in IR are ultimately complex and perhaps even incomplete. Not one of them appears to have found the one answer to explain the world, complex as well, and it does not look like one will in the next years. But this is not to be taken as a fallback necessarily. The evolution of IR theories is proof of the search for understanding and use of analysis that is embedded in human nature. The very fact that postmodernism parts from the critique of realism's definition of concepts like power make it evident that one indirectly wants within the other one, which supports the interconnection of IR. Although power can be ambiguous and subjective in the eyes of various perspectives, the new generation of scholars and political scientists must learn to take a little bit from each and go beyond them to create a fuller definition. As the very Foucault explains, it is not necessary to draw a line between those who believe that we can continue to situate our present discontinuities within the historical and transcendental tradition of the 19th century and those who are making a great effort to liberate themselves, once and for all, from all this conceptual framework.